All right. Today, I want to show you the knife tool. Now, you may be familiar with this, you may not be, but go ahead and start with a sphere or a cube. Go ahead and choose a cube, and got our floor in there. Looks like perspective's on. It's up to you what you want to do there, but we're going to go and pick the knife tool. We're just going to use knife curve, and then it's just basically saying that to access this, you need to do the Control and Shift keys. You can skip that note until next time or hit it every time, but these are your Control and Shift keys together. And as you'll see, this changes to show that we're on knife mode. And this is actually a lot of fun. You can just start slicing through your model, and we're creating a rock, so that's organic. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my symmetry because I don't want this to be mirrored. Otherwise, that'll be a dead giveaway. And you'll see there's a shaded side to this line, and that tells you which side it's going to be cutting off. And the way that you do that is depending on which way you draw your stroke. So if I were to go from the bottom over, you can see the shaded side is going to take off most of, my model, which is not what I wanted. So I'm just chopping off pieces of this cube, try to make kind of a, whoops, got the mask, trying to make a stone. A little tricky to make sure you're selecting both of those buttons over here. And right now it's super geometric. It's not really looking like much of a rock, but you got to trust the process here. If we were to look at the poly mode, you can see what's going on. It's creating a new grid at each slice. And then there's, edges that come together there, but keeps things fairly low poly and clean, which is great for our purposes. So there's no right way or wrong way per se. At this point, we're just trying to make it look less like a box. But now you see how I've started dragging the wrong direction. I could move it off the model altogether and release, and it'll just do nothing. Or I can do something like slide over to this button, and then it moves around. Then I can reposition it, do that, and slice something off. Now, right now, it's called the curve tool, but it's more like a straight ruler, right? It's not curving for us. So how do we get that curve? Well, you're going to have to do a little bit of finger gymnastics here, but again, you grab these two, initiate the curve, slide over, you can move it to where you want if it's not quite where you want, but you come down to this plus button and then it starts to curve, see that? So it'll make a curve and pivot right there, and then tap it again and you'll get another curve. So if you were, wanted to carve like 3 lines into it, but you can see it took more of my model than I wanted. And this can be a little unpredictable sometimes, just this curve tool in general. But there we go, we got it. But see how it cut out a smoother, more organic shape. Not necessarily what I was looking for my rock, but you know what? We're gonna own it. Maybe we'll even do some more curves. See, I think I let go before releasing my pencil, and so that is why. No, it's the other way. So, we're learning together. I've always had some hit and misses, if you will, with this. This is another tool that is just hiding things. That's not what we want. We'll talk about that another time. But, you know, we're determined to figure out what was going on here. See how it's not playing nice. I don't know if it's because I release at that point. So we got to try to slide. So we're sliding, turning. But I've got to release to get another slide on back. No, that creates, okay. Huh. Maybe it's because I started below. Suffice it to say, you know, we're all always learning. And I'm doing something wrong here. I'm going to turn off my perspective. Maybe it had something to do with that. Let's try this again. So if I just slice it, it's fine. If I do one bend, that's when we have a problem. What if we were to go the other direction? Then it's working. So I think that's a bug for some reason. You know, so if it's not doing what you want on these curves, then try switching direction. So, you know, this is still a miracle to me that ZBrush is on the iPad, and I know there's a lot of you out there that love Nomad and are hating on me for talking up ZBrush because you're having such a great experience with Nomad. And you know what I say to that? Go for it. You do you, you know? Because I've been waiting for ZBrush on the iPad for 15 years. And, you know, I use Nomad. I used it quite a bit and had fun with it, but it always felt like it was missing something. It wasn't ZBrush. It was still, and maybe that's just some bias of mine, and that is fair. People were able to create some amazing stuff in Nomad, and I'm glad there's competition, you know, because if Nomad wasn't a thing, then maybe ZBrush would have never made the jump to the iPad. You know, there were plenty of sculpting tools, you know, created over the past decade on the iPad, and, you know, Forger and whatever. I can't even think of all of them. But Nomad seemed to be the one that just listened to the people, or, you know, they, I'm sure, were inspired by desktop version of ZBrush because, you know, like it or not, that is the industry standard. You know, Mudbox was a thing for a while, but less of a thing. Obviously, I'm struggling to talk and create my rock at the same time, so I've kind of forgotten what I'm doing here. And you might say, well, you better scrap this, right? Well, no, because we got this. And one other thing to talk about here with the curve is if you tap, double tap, you get a hard angle. See that? So you want a curve, it's just the one tap on the plus minus button. You want hard, transition in direction, then you're going to want to double tap. So this will be a good use of that. Boom, cut out a big old chunk. So this rock is getting crazy, and part of me is thinking that maybe I've gone too far. You know, is this really going to end up looking halfway decent, organic, whatever, or is this just going to be an obvious hot mess that ain't nobody gonna love? Well, this process is very forgiving, let's just put it that way, and I'm willing to experiment a little bit. You know, before jumping on this tutorial on video, on audio, I did a much simpler rock and tried it out and double checked my workflow, made sure everything worked the way I expect it to on the iPad. And I was pretty impressed, mostly with how forgiving this process is. So if you didn't notice it, I'm going to jump away from the knife tool now and grab the TrimDynamic brush. And what I like to do is just rub it over your edges. And you can see, you know, I'm getting some pixelation there. So maybe I want to bump up my density before I do that. So we're going to go to DynaMesh, take the resolution up to whatever suits you. I'm going to say 240, hit DynaMesh, boom. Now I'm getting some smoother deformations with this TrimDynamic brush. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm just rubbing it over the edges, the creases, and I'm trying to jump around and come back to it, because then it's giving the rock kind of this hammered surface that is going to happen if a rock, you know, breaks off of the side of a cliff and goes tumbling down the hill. You know, it's going to knock some stuff off. You've got wind erosion. It's going to do some of this. You've got other rocks that have fallen off above it, you know, hit this rock on its way down, broke off a chunk. You know, nature, it's real and it's wild. Real and it's wild. And, you know, we're getting some interesting things, as Bob Ross would say, some happy little accidents, some things that are happening that we didn't necessarily plan. And the beautiful thing with this process is you could be looking at reference. Let's say you're trying to match rocks from a particular locale or scene, and use that as reference, and obviously be a little bit more careful with, you know, the size of brush, how many chunks are broken off of your rock, or how smooth is it. You know, maybe it is an ancient riverbed, and so these rocks are a lot more smooth, whatever it is. But just already my mind's saying rock instead of like badly cut gem, which is what we were dealing with before. A badly cut gem, you know, something that would need to be redone, and you're going to lose some, you know, some value because the first guy didn't know what he was doing, right? You'll find that I think I'm funnier than I actually am. So, you know, feel free to drop in the comments that the dad jokes are not funny. They've gone too far. Find a different platform for that crap. Your kids don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. I got it. Message received and ignored. So, you know, I've obviously got my flat part of this rock because it's been sitting there for a long time, or it's going to be embedded into the ground below, and I'm making this for a game asset or, some product shot where rocks and the outdoors are going to be featured. I probably went a little carried away up in there. Abort. But again, YOLO, Bob Ross, happy accidents. This could happen in nature. Some big old piece just sheared off, and here in a moment we'll make that seem even more intentional. This mistake of me going in here and smoothing off areas maybe more than I should have because I got carried away telling the dad jokes. And it's important to jump around the model, whether it's a rock, a character, a drawing, your piece of artwork, and just work it in, passes. Because if I were to do every step of this rock on this one section and then move to another section and go through each step, for one, it would take longer. For two, it would open itself up to more mistakes, unnecessary fixes, duplication of effort, all the things. So once I've finished, hitting all these edges, and we don't have to hit all of them. Maybe there's a recent break on this boulder or rock that hasn't been smoothed over yet, and you want it to stay jagged. Well, that's good. Keep it, and that's where reference helps a lot. Of course, I'm gonna go to Chisel. Just grab the standard chisel brush. Then you've got these different tips here. You want to make sure that you're on the right stroke, because when I first opened this up, I don't know if the default was drag rectangle, but then I tried to, carve into it, and it just drew a big hole. So instead, use, drag dots or freehand. Yeah, drag dots. That was not what I meant. Freehand or dots, just regular dots, yeah. And regular dots is just putting a bunch of little dots next to each other for kind of a faster stroke. And so you see there, I've put a gash into the rock where, it's starting to break maybe. And this whole area down in here is a hot mess, but this is where we're going to try to make this more intentional. And you can see it's creating a lot of distortion, pulling of the violent brush, this chisel brush. So I'll hit it with the smooth and a couple other tools I'll show you here in a minute. But when you really start getting this kind of stretching that's happening here, that's probably a good time to re-DynaMesh. And speaking of that, you can use DynaMesh as a smoother, if you will. So see how, jaggedy these carves are right here, these cracks. Well, if I go to DynaMesh, turn on polish, and then I DynaMesh it by holding down mask and drawing a shape. See how it went in there and polished that all out? So there you go. That may be more than you wanted. Something to experiment with. for me. I like it. Hit some of these areas again. Go deeper, go crazier, because now I know kind of what the DynaMesh polish is going to do. The known quantity. So I know that I want to go more violent as opposed to less violent with my strokes, because a lot of that's going to get cleaned up. And so, you know, we're putting cracks in here. Could use it as just some little dings in the rocks, some imperfections where little rocks hit and took out a chunk. And right now, you know, it's looking pretty rough, and certain rocks might have some of this damage, and others wouldn't take damage like that. So again, argument for reference. If you got it, use it. Let's hit that with the DynaMesh again. Boom. Yes. Okay. And, you know, at this point, you may decide, I want to go and repeat some of those steps again. Like trim off some more, or jump back to the TrimDynamic. Knock down some of these edges a bit more. Whatever. You know, hit some of these areas so that it looks like, yeah, there was a chunk taken out of there, but then, you know, that was 100 years ago and it started to erode away again. You know, that everything tells a story, has a story to tell. What's your rock story? So, depending on the type of rock, the style you're going for is going to help inform what it is you should do here. You know, maybe like I like using clay buildup for my other models a lot and carving into things. And so this might give you some of that texture that you're looking for, depending on the type of rock you're doing. Like maybe the TrimDynamic is just too predictable and perfect. Whoops, turn off RGB. So, and again, this looks not good. Some of this new damage that I'm doing, but kind of experimenting because I know that we've got DynaMesh to help me out here, do some interesting things. And honestly, you know, I like some of that I don't. But if nothing else, it opens up new areas for your TrimDynamic to get in there and work. You know, so it's not just the corners of a box. Do this. And I could get more detailed, turn this size down a little bit. You know, depends on, is this rock going to be close up or is it in the background? And if that's the case, we were probably done 10 minutes ago. But I'm assuming this is a hero rock that I'm designing here. You know, I've got some product that I'm going to set on top of it and render with a cool background, but, you know, the rock is going to be seriously, heavily featured. So there's one big glaring thing missing, in my opinion, from this rock. And maybe some of y'all have already identified what that is, or you're thinking, I'm done, I'm checking out, I've learned what I wanted to here, thanks for the tip, or, this was the dumbest video I've ever seen, and for that reason I'm gone. You're entitled to your opinion. No hard feelings. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab another brush, little brush I like to call a noise brush. Go to my recents. I think I had it. There we go. And let's scale it up. And I think that's going to give us bigger noise. Yeah, so look at that already. Got some interesting stuff going, right? Just drag that across here. And don't worry, if we go too far, we can polish it out. With our DynaMesh. Because I think I want to go in heavy, and then I'm going to take the Lord giveth, and then he taketh away type of a technique here. I don't know why I'm on the bottom. Why is it not showing up? Oh, but there you go. We do just have the one tool. Okay. Let's hit that DynaMesh again. Boom. Okay. That gave us some interesting stuff. And maybe I'll take the brush size down and smooth it a little bit in some of these areas. So this created our bigger texture in the rock, but we want to go back and get some finer texture. So now I've got the same noise brush. I haven't done anything except for working with a smaller brush size, and I'm pressing a lot softer. So that's starting to come together, I think. And if something looks good in a clay form or grayscale like this without special materials or maps, then it's just going to look that much better with the maps. Now let's say we don't want to hit this with DynaMesh again, which is probably the case, and yet I got a little carried away. I pressed too hard on this one area. I could smooth it out, but there's also a cool brush, which is like, I forget, it's called the history brush. Yeah, history recall. Oh, recall mesh that has stored by undo history data. Control click on the desired undo history stage to store mesh, then try again. All right, well, you could imagine there is a way to go back and recall some of that stuff, but we'll just say in most cases you just want to do undo, unless it was longer ago and you're too many undos away from it and you want to keep some of the stuff you've done in the future. There is a way, and obviously I don't know how to set it up, or else I wouldn't have said anything on this video. But in the end, I wanted this series of videos to be real time. I wanted them to be more realistic. I wanted you to see that even someone that professes to know a lot about a program still doesn't know it all. And some of those, tutorials are just so slick, so smooth, so heavily edited, and I've been guilty of making those as well. But they can be a little demoralizing, especially if you're new. You're like, this is taking me forever. how long should it take? Well, the answer is as long as it takes, right? So we're almost done. You know, you could use the chisel brush, but like I said, that's a violent brush. This DamStandard brush has a smoothing to it, so it smooths and kind of pinches slightly things as you're drawing it or sculpting. So I like to use it at this stage where we're dealing with, you know, nearly finished model here, and we don't want to do another DynaMesh where we're going to lose all of our noise pattern if we hit the DynaMesh again. Doesn't mean we can't put the noise back on if you've decided that that's really the best thing. One more tool I want to show you for this kind of hard surface rock action, and that is pinch. So you want to make your pinch brush a little bigger than the areas that you want to pinch together. So see, if I rub that across there, it's bringing these two edges together, which for a rock, you know, real sharp chisels makes sense to me anyway. You know, or maybe it doesn't just have to be on the cracks. Maybe you've decided like this edge needs to have some bite to it. Let's sharpen it up a little bit. And you should probably do this before putting on noise, because you can see it's pulling the noise too. But guess what? We've still got that noise brush. Didn't go nowhere. We can lay in a little bit more noise if we want, you know. Because it's stretched, it's going to look a little stretched. So, you know, DynaMeshing would fix that, but then you're got to hit the whole thing with the noise again, which is not a big deal. And this is a process. And it's something that you do again and again. And, you know, now if I were to go do another rock, like that needs to kind of match this rock, well, guess what? It's going to be that much easier. So this is a rock that was pretty gnarly. Like, I purposely tried to do some things that, you know, weren't the safest, like this big gouge right here, just to show that this process is forgiving, fluid. You know, you can really work some areas and bring it back to life, or you know, get the detail you want. And here I start to doubt myself or question my decisions, you know, because here I was saying that we're basically done, and I decided to climb inside the crevice here and work it a bit more. Because I zoomed out and I thought, that is not very interesting. And you say, what isn't very interesting? Well, this whole rock in general. You know, hitting some of these edges with the inverse DamStandard brush helps accentuate some sharp edges. You know, using it to carve in on some stuff. We're going to go ahead and grab our noise brush again to fix up some of these areas that got too smooth. So now you throw on some colors, some reflection maps, normal maps. You can really start to sell this guy as a rock, because that's what it is.